All right. Greetings, EricWhitmoyer.com community. My name is David. I'm one of the certified coaches with EricWhitmoyer.com. And we have Eric with us today. And we are going to be talking about kind of this concept of goal setting, right? Eric is affectionately known around here as the guru of goal setting. But we're going to take it a step further. And Eric's been doing a lot of work and several speaking engagements around the topic of time management, and something that I know Eric is passionate about. I'm equally passionate about, so I'm excited to talk to him about this today. Eric, let's just kind of start off real quick, if we could, and just kind of bring the audience up to speed. Why is it important to consider time when setting a goal?
Yeah, great question, David. Let me first start with the idea that time should be a consideration for anything you do in your life, because it's the sole commodity that you can never get back once it's spent. Lots of people talk about, you can't money this, and I don't want to lose money, I don't want to lose this, I don't want to lose that, but you cannot ever get time back. So once it's spent, it's spent. And I think that that's one of the things that really, for me, resonates as I began to write the book on the goal setting piece, is that why is it so important to set goals and then strive after those goals? Well, you only have so much time. And you know what? The next 12 months are going to pass, whether you accomplish any of your goals or not. And so at the end of the day, the reality is that that time's going to pass. You're going to be another year older. And if you're no further along than where you wanted to be that year previously, you're probably going to be a little more disappointed. Remember, in the last session we talked about, in the past, I had people I'd worked with for a number of years and worked in the steel mill factory. And I referenced how a lot of them, after 20 or 30 years of working this job, were kind of bitter about where they were in life.
Right.
And I think that's important to remember, because that the reason that a lot of them were bitter is they felt trapped. They felt like they couldn't do anything more, and their time was minimal. They had less of it left. And I think even for myself personally, you and I have a few years different, and I look things differently than you do. I think about it and I'm like, wow, at my age, things seem to be accelerating. The years go faster than they ever did when I was younger. And consequently, I have even more internal pressure about achieving those goals that I really want to achieve. So I think that's why it's one of the real key components of why it's so important. It's such a precious commodity. We need to make sure that we're really focused on, what is our time worth? And do I truly understand what my time is worth? Because that's an important component of that. But the other part of that, and I think that as it really kind of sum it up, is that when you're setting your goals, even making sure you set enough time aside to achieve the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things that kind of come into that idea of, why time management is so important to goal setting.
Yeah, and I know that, as we've worked together and as I've seen you work with clients, oftentimes what we see is if that time isn't part of the goal, it's difficult to gauge how much intensity, right, you're going to put into that. Because if you feel like you've got years to go after something, or maybe even you haven't thought about it, you're not going to have a lot of intensity around it. And I know that you're a big Anthony Robbins fan, right, and kind of that concept of massive action. You really only do that when you've got a very specific amount of time that you're going after to attack that goal. So I know that's pretty critical, and definitely something that you've incorporated in your goal setting process. So
one other thing I'll add to that, David, is that oftentimes, what's funny is that I thought about this too. Just getting people to spend enough time to setting their goals. And I think we talked about this in the last session, actually, specifically. But I said that, I recommended as much as 5 hours.
Right.
We talked about the number of hours you spend watching commercials, right? And that actually, over the course of 30 days, if you're watching live TV, over the course of 30 days, that time wasted watching commercials, that 5 hours gives you enough time to do a goal setting exercise that would last you an entire year.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So and ironically, as I was writing this recent blog, I was talking about, most people, even if they did sit down to spend the 5 hours to put the goal together, now they're not effectively spending their time on implementing those systems, those action steps that they came up with.
Right.
My favorite sayings is that, oftentimes people like to get, they ship their goals off to someday I'll.
Yeah.
I've got this really fun, elaborate goal of I want to achieve this, and I want to do that, and I want to have, X number of businesses or whatever, that I'm going to write these books, right? and I ship it off to someday I'll, because I don't have the time right now. And that's the part that people don't grasp, is that the time, there's no such thing as I don't have time. You make time for it. And that's why the time management is so important, because you have to integrate it into whatever it is that's important to you.
Yeah. I remember actually early on, as you're kind of, driving this concept into my head, right? Was
driving it or hammering it in?
Depended on the day, I think. But I remember using the analogy of, if you were going to build a house, how much time would you spend planning, right? And the answer is pretty obvious, right? You'd spend a significant amount of time planning. You wouldn't just start nailing stuff together. But I think the reality is, myself, right, before I really got this concept, and a lot of people, we just start grabbing 2x4s and starting to build something, and we don't spend any time planning. And when you really sit down and think about it, 5 hours, that may sound like a lot of time, but imagine how much lost time you're going to have if you don't spend the time planning, right? And so I think it's an important piece of this. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Right on. Well, next question I got for you, Eric, is, time management. It's kind of a broad term. So I'm curious, how do you define time management?
All right. So this is a good question, because I was, as it came in and we were talking about, hey, somebody asked about this, how do we deal with this? And so I thought about it. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go for the staple. I'm going to go to the Webster's Dictionary. So I'm going to read it word for word, and then I'm going to give you my answer, just to kind of give you some comparison. But the Webster's Dictionary would, it says the analysis of how working hours are spent in the prioritization of tasks in order to maximize personal efficiency in the workplace. So I seem to adequately sum it up. I'm sure that Webster's kind of got a clue what they're doing. So
it's a little vanilla, though.
Pretty vanilla. Although I'm going to make it a little bit more simple. I would simply say it's the art and science of getting things done. And I say it in that sense because there's two things that and you've heard me reference art and science a couple of times now. I think that in life, and I think this really kind of comes from my work in the years in sales, recognizing that there's a science to everything we do. There's a very practical step-by-step, this is how you do it, right? It's all organized and laid out and everything like that. And that's a component of time management. There's tons of resources and tools that you get today to manage your time more effectively. And that's important, because you have to find a tool and you have to use it and you have to employ it in your daily routine to make sure that it's effective and all that kind of stuff, whether it's a planner or a scheduler of some sort, whether you use an Outlook or some kind of iPhone application, or whatever it is, whatever you're using to manage your time, you have to have that science part of it. The other part of it is the art part of it, and that is recognizing that you have these resources available to you, these tools that are available to you, but realizing they don't all work for everybody the same.
Right.
How you use your tools and resources, how I do that, how time management in my world is different than time management in your world.
Right.
It's different than time management, for instance, in my brother's world or one of my clients' worlds. Everybody's got their own. And so you have to understand what works within your world and then what works for you.
Right.
And so I think that's a unique stance that I've kind of developed over the years now, is that I can give people ideas and suggestions, but at the end of the day, what's the most important part about time management is finding a system that works for you.
Yeah.
Because when you find a system that works for you, that you can hold yourself accountable to and challenge yourself with, now you can work on efficiencies. Now you can, okay, how do I get more efficient at this, right? When you have systems and routines in place that you can challenge yourself with, you can recognize that I can get these tasks that need to get done, I can get them done quicker if I do it this way. And that concept of efficiency really plays into time management, because the more efficient I am at doing certain tasks that need to get done, the more time it leaves me for doing more important things.
Yeah.
And how I take the most important things and plug them into my day, in that, and manage my time around that through prioritization and some of the other things that we teach are exceptionally important, because then at that point, you're always getting the most important things done first, which is yet another concept of that. But I think that's really important for people to understand. It's very much an art and a science. You have to pick a science, some discipline, let's call it, that you're going to use that's going to help you manage your time, whether you just write it in a journal every day.
Right.
Or like I said, use that, that day planner, whatever it is, whatever it's going to work for you. You could plug it into electronic calendar. I've tried hundreds. You and I have both gone back and forth, and I've tried to explain to you, I'm using this time. I'm using this time.
Yeah.
Each time, I'm trying to find something that's the right fit. And consequently, what I end up finding is that it really comes down to what works best for you. And so that takes some time and practice too. But so anyway, kind of define time management. I think it's the art and science of getting things done. How do I get things done? How do I get them done efficiently and timely, and then be able to prioritize and set time aside for the things that are most important to me?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I do love that one of the things you brought up was when you teach time management, you generally teach concepts and principles and specific things that you can do, but it's not really part of a single, you have to do it exactly this way. And I think that's important because you may remember this, but at one point in my career, I'd been working with a team of people where everybody used, the Franklin planners and stuff like that.
Right.
That just did not work for me. And I think it was an important realization, because I felt like I was doing something wrong. Like maybe I just wasn't as sharp as I thought I was because this wasn't working. It didn't work for everybody else. And, we kind of worked through some different principles and concepts, and I was able to kind of, take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Now I've got a system that works, amazing for me, but I think that is important, and you really need to understand those key concepts. And I know that you talk through that in the different, seminars and things that you do on time management. So
yeah, absolutely. The key is to understand the principles and then apply them how they best work for you.
Absolutely. Yep. Can agree more. Well, speaking of that, I know that you've done, specifically in the last, 90 days, several speaking engagements on time management. Could you just share maybe 2 or 3 of those kind of core concepts that you like to work through with your clients?
Sure. So I'm going to give you 2 because I need a reason for you to read the book.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I haven't even talked about that yet. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I have 2, and I think they're the most valuable and probably the most practical to help somebody as they kind of embark on, hey, how do I get more efficient at managing my time? So first and foremost, having clearly defined goals is paramount. So ironically, as I'm talking about my book for goal setting, this is a direct correlation here, and this is the best way that I could help somebody understand. I'm not trying to talk in circles about this, but the reality is, if you don't know what you want to achieve or accomplish, and you don't know what's most important to you, i.e. going through your goal setting workshop and actually coming out with some kind of end product from that, solution or an answer, or what you want to do and what's important to you, then how could you possibly know how you should be spending your time? That's you can't get any more basic than that concept, and that's the challenge that I think that most people struggle with, is that, well, I want to learn about time management, and I kind of stop them and say, I'm sure you do, and all of us do. I know I do. I can always get better at time management, but what I got to tell you is, unless you really know what's most important to you and what you absolutely want to accomplish in whatever time frame, I can't really tell you how to manage your time. Right? If you tell me all the things that are really important to you, and then you tell me all the things that you wanted to try and accomplish, we can come up with a schedule. We can come up with a game plan. We can lay it out, and then we can find something that fits within your what you're comfortable with, your skill sets, like we talked about earlier. But I can't really help somebody manage their time unless I know what they're trying to accomplish. And so, unless you know what it is that's most important to you, I can't really tell you how to manage your time. That's one, the very most basic principle, paramount to everything else, is one, you got to really know what it is you're trying to accomplish and what's their biggest priorities. And the second principle that often gets overlooked when it comes to time management, and it would change my life dramatically, is knowing what your time is worth. So you and I have been through this exercise a couple of times, and we've got a newer iteration. I'm not going to go through that full-blown exercise, but understanding what your time is worth, and I'll give you a quick synopsis. You basically take your annual compensation, divide it by the number of hours you work, and you get a dollar amount. Well, it's for all intents and purposes, whatever you made last year divided by the number of 2,000 hours, you want to call it, 50 weeks at 40 hours, that's 2,000 hours, and that's your dollar amount. Well, if I want to make $100,000 a year, my hourly rate is $50 an hour. And when you recognize that you're worth $50 an hour, if that's, that's where you're at, then all of a sudden it kind of changes your perspective on what you're doing with your time. Let me take it one step further. You may be making $50 an hour because you're making $100,000 a year, but you really want to make more. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you'd like to be getting $200 or $250 an hour. The $250 an hour sounds like a lot of money, but there's lots of people that make that kind of money. And consequently, when you realize that you're worth $250, and when you're truly worth the time that you invest in what you do that's productive and gets results is worth $250 an hour or more, it really kind of just changes your perspective on what you do with your downtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's made me unbelievably conscious of wasting time. If father time, i.e. me getting older, hasn't had some bearing on how I spend my time, recognizing how much my time is worth has also had an equal, if not bigger, effect on that. And the combination of the two really puts some sense of urgency into your life and starts changing the way you look at things. So I think that's probably, as a secondary piece, is really getting people to understand what is really important to understand when it comes to time management is understanding what your time is worth. And the first when I first went through this exercise, I remember it was a weekend seminar. I went through the exercise, and I came home, and my initial inclination was, my favorite pastime was to play Madden football on PlayStation. And so I came home and I was ready to set up, and I remember that I sat down and I literally turned the game on. As I'm turning the game on, I had this debate in my head, and I'm like, I know if I sit down and do this, 6 hours will pass before I'll put the controller down and walk away, because that's how addicted I was to playing. I call it EFL, Eric's Football League.
Nice.
And I was hooked. I was in my 30s, and it was just something I loved to do. I had a passion for playing football, and when I realized I could be a professional football player, this was my backup. This is my solution. And it was my escape. And I sold myself on, this is my escape. The problem was it became consuming. And a lot of people don't realize that, but we do that with lots of things in our life. It could be surfing the internet. It could be watching TV. It could be doing, wasteful time doing other things.
It's Netflix now, Eric. That's
Netflix.
The new,
there you go.
Eric Football League is Netflix for a lot of people, and binge watching an entire season or two in one night.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So when you think about that, and you think, I wrote in the blog, I actually remember spending an entire weekend. My wife was out of town. The kids were out of town. I was all by myself, and I literally spent, from Friday when I got home from work, I ordered pizza. I slept maybe 5 hours both nights, and I never left the house. I never left my loft, and I sat there and played Madden football for the entire weekend. And all these projects I could have been working on, all these things that I could have done, all these honey-do lists that would have get my wife off my back and made her happy and made her love me more.
Yeah. And
I put it all off for that. And so my point is, when you realize that you're worth that's what it was. It was probably 2 months later. I went to that seminar. I went through that exercise, and I came away and I'm like, wow. And I unplugged the game. I put it in a closet, and I didn't touch it for over 5 years. And then the next time I pulled it out is I hooked it up for my son so he could play it. And the irony is even to this day, I won't have a game station in my house. My son has it in his room. I never use that. And I was like, I stay away from it because I know how consuming that is. And it keeps me, because I know how important that is, how much my time is worth and how I can be wasteful with my time.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that. So for me, that's just kind of, it's one thing that I dealt with. Everybody has their own vices that they have to kind of manage through, but it really starts with what's my time worth. And when I think about $250 an hour, and heaven forbid about the time with my wife and my kids, I can't put a price on that. Right. That's invaluable. So I could have easily spent that time elsewhere doing something else more productive.
Well, and I think, and I know you and I have both heard this numerous times, but people might hear that example and think, Eric just needed to unplug. He needed some Eric time, or, are you saying I can't ever do anything fun? I have to be a workaholic. And I don't, as I understand it, that's not really what you're saying or what you prescribe. It's understand what brings value to your life and what doesn't. And that doesn't necessarily just work, but it's, could I be doing something else? Maybe instead of, the PlayStation, maybe it would have been spending time with a friend and cultivating a friendship, or networking, which can be fun and lead to more fruitful outcomes. And so I think, there may be a skeptic or two that watches this and they think that, Eric just never wants anybody to have any fun and work 24/7. And I don't think that's the case. It's are you adding value to your life, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, I like Xbox just as much as the next 30-ish-year-old guy, right? But how much value does that add to my life and relationships? And candidly, not a lot, right? And so,
Right.
If you're going to do it consciously. Know that you're giving up something else to do it, and then make that choice. And
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, that means you're going to be playing a lot less Xbox, but you'll have a richer, deeper, more fulfilling life, and that's worth it, right? So
that's far more worth it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I was just going to say the other piece that you're talking about knowing, what's most important, and then kind of, organizing around that. I think so true, because a lot of people, right, they're busy, but they're not productive, and they're certainly not moving closer to their goal. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is, there's people who say they are really bad at time management, and I tell them, no, you're just really bad at managing your priorities and goals, right? And I know you've had similar talk track. We're a little nicer, right? But that's the reality is you're not focusing on what's most important. And when people realize what's most important, it's amazing, how much better at time management they get, especially when they apply those principles. So Awesome. Love it. Great insights there. And if you want more of those principles, right, that as Eric joked about earlier, he's got a ton of them in his book, and also available in his upcoming book that he's going to be working on. We're just releasing goal setting. We've got a time management book that he's working on as well. So a lot
later this year.
Later this year. Yep. So we're gonna have a ton of more insights in that. Okay, so let's see. Just a couple more questions. I know we're coming up on our time here today, Eric. But how does effective time management help people achieve their goals?
So and I think we've kind of touched on it throughout each of the questions. But I think the big takeaway here is that we talked about prioritization, right? We talked about knowing what's most important to you. We've also talked about what's my time worth, right? So when you kind of take all three of those things and combine them all together, and you apply it to goals, right? For instance, like I said in my initial exercise there that I explained, at the time my time was worth $100 an hour, and it was worth $50 an hour. Bad example. $50 an hour times the 40 hours, and the 2,000 hours is $100,000 a year. So my $50 an hour example, I knew that I wanted more. And as I set my goals and I kind of put it out there and I said, okay, here's where I want to go. This is what I want it to be worth. This is what I want to accomplish with it. I recognized that, okay, my job is only going to get me so much. I need to start a side business, or I need to get promoted, right? And we were in the sales industry, and I'm like, okay, well, if I could produce more results, then I can actually make more income, right? And or I can get promoted. Right, I'm going through a kind of the thought process that I had. I can get promoted, and by having more responsibility, I'll earn more money. So as I go through the different analogies, while I'm doing my goal setting, and I'm thinking, okay, there's 3 or 4 different ways that I could achieve $100 an hour as opposed to $50 an hour, how I could get there faster, and I'm going to put it all together, and I say, okay, over the next 12 months, how can I get there the fastest? What's the thing that I can do that's going to be most productive for me to get there quicker? And as I set my goals and kind of put them all together, I came up with this idea, I could sell more, which will lead to, or at least create the opportunity for me to get promoted. That promotion will then take me to the next level within our organization. I'll make this much money. I kind of knew what that income level looked like. And so I began to look at everything I was doing and saying, okay, how do I do more? How do I become more effective how do I sell more? How do I learn more? And I had to plug it into my daily routine. So I've got all these goals. Now, how do I make sure that I'm doing the things that are going to help me achieve that goal? And I plug them in my daily routine. So for instance, I immediately started amping up the number of books I was reading. So generally speaking, I used to read a book a month and thought I was pretty good with that. And then I heard that the average CEO reads about 60 books a year. And I'm like, wow, 5 books a month. Well, I don't know if I can do that, but I can certainly start reading 2 or 3 books a month. I can accelerate the number of books I'm reading, the more that I learn about my field, sales, sales management, things like that. So I started reading more books. That improved my skill set. I started taking a few seminars, right? And those seminars actually helped me to round out my leadership skills and to develop some more leadership skills. And then consequently, I started looking at ways to drive my sales results. So I'm improving my sales skills, and I'm doing more activity to drive my sales results. All of these things combined, I had to plug into my daily routine. So I found 2 or 3 places throughout the course of the day where I could read in lieu of something else I was doing that wasn't as productive. And I started beginning to spend weekends going to these seminars as opposed to something else I might be doing, i.e. playing football with the guys, flag football. And as I started incorporating these things that were important to my goals into my daily routine, my efficiency with my time was like through the roof. So I did that for about 6 to 12 months. And what happened was all of a sudden, I mean, literally within months, I had promotion. My sales increased dramatically. I got a promotion and then a second promotion, both within the same year. And all because of all the time and energy I was putting into driving towards my goals. I was spending more time doing more productive things that were going to get me results that I was looking for. And ultimately what ended up happening was I tripled what I wanted to make per hour. And I was able to leapfrog the goal that I had set for myself because I took massive action, as you referenced earlier. And I was really kind of committed to, hey, how do I get there faster? And I was able to jump all the way up to $150 an hour. And when I realized my time was worth $150 an hour, that was a game changer. Right? And that immediately made me go back and through. And as I started looking at, okay, how do I improve on this for next year? And I started looking at other things that I could do. But what it does is by having those goals set and really kind of factoring that in, you go back into your daily schedule, right? Your time management. And I plug it into my calendar. I set these times a day aside to do these different tasks. And I have all these other roles and responsibilities, but if you don't carve out time to do those things, you'll never do those important things that'll help you get ahead in life.
Right.
Most people just kind of go through it, but they don't actually see the leapfrog effect because they're not putting enough time and energy into those things that they really want to achieve.
Yeah, and what I love about what you're saying too is, you talk through that in your book, but also with the book, you've got the companion guide. And so I was just kind of flipping through this as you were talking and we were prepping for this, but in there, right, on your goal sheets that you have where people can help kind of map out their goals, you've got some of those things broken down in there, like a to-do list and, things like that. And so, it's one of those things that the concept is invaluable, but when you really take it and then you've got a tangible way to apply that in the companion guide or whatever form you want to use. I mean, I recommend the companion guide, but you can use anything you want. But when you really start to break down those things and then plug them into your schedule, as Eric said, I mean, that's really pretty powerful because now you're taking tangible steps every day toward your goal. But you don't do that unless you go through the exercise and then you focus on managing your time better and more valuably so that you can pursue the goal that you really want. So I love what you're talking about, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, when you go through the goal setting exercise and you get to the point where you come up with your strategies, tactics, and action steps, those action steps actually convert directly into your calendar. You go to your Outlook calendar or whatever it is you use to manage your time, and you plug it in and say, okay, on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, I'm calling so-and-so for a coaching session. On Wednesday at 7:30 a.m., I'm doing an email campaign and I'll send that out. And I know that'll take me 90 minutes. So let me block out 90 minutes to do that. And, and then you just start plugging those things in. And these are all things that, initially don't have the big return you're looking for. But committed to it daily over time, over an extended period of time, what ends up happening is you get better and better results. And I learned that early on with sales is that my return on my sales efforts came dramatically when I did just simple follow-up calls after I completed a transaction with a customer. Next day, 2 days later, I would call them, say, hey, thanks for your business. I really appreciate your business. It's been great serving you. If I could ever serve you again in any way, please let me know. Oh, by the way, if you know anybody else would benefit from the great service I provided you, please reach out to them. Here's my name and number. And by the way, I'll have a little something for you if you do that for me. And half the time I didn't even tell them that last bit. But the point is, you notice how that just kind of rolls off my tongue. It's because I spent years developing that pitch. And consequently, those referrals and that business that I built over time, the first couple of times I didn't get a response from it. Matter of fact, the first many times I didn't get a response. As I improved that pitch and as it got better, it built over time. And I was committed. Everybody would say, well, you take too long to do your transaction. I'm like, I only take longer than you do because I incorporate these things that I don't have to duplicate again later on. I became exceptionally efficient at managing my time during a transaction. And so even though I took 15 or 20 minutes longer than the average salesperson, I didn't have people coming back because I didn't explain something correctly, or I didn't take care of this, or I didn't do this for them, or I didn't set this up for them. And consequently, I had more efficient time on the sales floor, and that led into more time to do other things that were productive for me. Ironically, when I got my first big promotion, my first big six-figure promotion, one of the guys who interviewed for the same promotion came to me and said, I'm a better salesperson than you. Why did you get the job? And admittedly, he was consistently the #1 sales producer. I was number 5 out of 150 people. Still number 5.
Yeah, not too bad.
But what you noticed, if you looked at our performances, you would notice that he had big ebbs and flows. Months where he just crushed it and blew everybody away, and other months where he, was kind of middle of the stack and then up and down. Mine was very consistently always right at the top. And the reason that I had that consistency is I had a model built. And it was plugged into my schedule. And every day I did my callbacks to my customers. Every day I did my follow-ups. Every day I reached out to new clients that I had never met before and tried to build business from that, my cold call list. And that over time really led to my opportunity to extend it out. But it was about how I managed my time every day with each customer, with each transaction. And that led to the top opportunities I had.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you've said it a few times now, but a big part of that is knowing what you want, right? You knew you wanted that promotion, or you wanted X number of dollars per hour for what your time was worth. And so a lot of it's knowing what you want in life, and then you can kind of structure the plan around it. So before we wrap up with any final thoughts that you have, Eric, to that end, right, if you want to figure out kind of what you want in life, right? Eric's book, Success with Goals, Designing Your Life with Purpose, really kind of walks through that. So it's available now as an ebook. So I strongly recommend, checking that out if anything that we've talked about has resonated. Eric talked about he's got another time management book coming out later this year. We haven't really talked about this, Eric, but I kind of want to throw this out here to the community. If you guys would be interested in attending maybe a virtual webinar on time management in advance of that book coming out, just let us know. Connect with us on social media. Send us something through the website, and we'll be happy to schedule that for anybody who'd be interested, and we'll put more information on that on the site. So
you can send an email to info@EricWhitmoyer.com.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If that's something the community wants and you don't want to wait for the book to come out and you're struggling with time management, we want to know. We can put something together around that and help serve our community a little bit better. So with that, Eric, any parting thoughts for our viewers?
Nope. I just appreciate the time, David. Great job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for the insight, and thank you to everyone who joined us. Hope you guys have a great day.